Hey everyone, so this is going to be the matchup. This is the three colored decks. This is the example game for the Esper control. Now this was an absolutely fantastic game. I may have made some mistakes here, but when it came down to it, it was really close. Both playing control decks, and hopefully it will be enjoyable for you guys. So we're coming around. This is the opening hand. Pretty good. One downside is that there is no island for the opening hand Delver. Now, I can't tell you how sad that makes me. The best play that you can ever see when you're playing Delver is turn 1 island, turn 1 Delver. But we did not get that. We do have the Evolving Wilds. We can search that out. But we are going to be maybe at a disadvantage here because we have 2 of the white cards in hand. And by using that Evolving Wilds to search out the island like we are going to obviously do, especially now that we drew the second Delver, that puts us back a little bit more on our mana count for white. There aren't very many planes in this deck, so you really are going to end up finding those with the Evolving Wilds. That's just how it's going to have to be. So my opponent starts off with his Kiln Fiend, and that's something you may want to consider at this point in time. I can put down a Delver of Secrets, but I do have 2 options as far as killing this Kiln Fiend, and that may be something that I want to address right away. That's going to come down to the situation. You can see here I do decide that I want to do it. My opponent's only at 4 cards in hand, so I probably could have gotten away with not doing it. But I've lost to Kiln Fiend on turn 2 in the right deck, so I really wanted to make sure that I kind of addressed that before it got out of hand. The Delvers are going to be fine coming into play later on. I really felt it was more necessary to get rid of that. So my opponent's next turn, he plays his own Delver, and you can see this is going to be great. Dimir control versus Izzet control. I do put out my first Delver of Secrets, and it's going to come down to a contest so you can get things flipped first. So my opponent does win out. He does reveal a Lightning Bolt, flipping his Delver on the first turn, which kind of sucks for me, but I'm going to take 3 gracefully and kind of wait for that opportunity. He's going to Lightning Bolt my own Delver. It's one of those things you can see it coming, but you see revealed on Mulldrifter, so I don't hit it. My opponent's probably going to wait to use that Lightning Bolt until he absolutely has to use it on the Delver. As long as it's swinging for 1, it's not really a threat, and my opponent isn't necessarily going to kill it off. But this does give me the opportunity to play the second Delver. I could have, drawn off the Mulldrifter to try and get that 5th land into play, but it's not really necessary. I'm going to hold on to that until later on where I want more of the hand advantage. Usually when you come down to control matchups, a lot of it comes down to hand advantage. I'm usually very willing to throw out a counterspell on my opponent's draws in this kind of matchup because I really feel that that's what wins control versus control matchups. And you can feel free to disagree with me on that, but that's my own personal understanding of the game or approach to the game, however you want to go about saying it. So both Delvers in play, finally hit an instant. Flip both of them with Mana Leak. Double show it there. So my opponent is aware that it is in my hand. And again, I have the opportunity. I could throw out Mulldrifter to try and find a land, but I am going to hold on to it. You see I leave mana open. I have options as far as Agony Warp and Mana Leak as well. It's going to be tough though. I know he still has this Lightning Bolt in hand. If he chooses to use it on one of these, he's going to have plenty of mana available later on to get past my Mana Leak. So puts down a Mog Fanatic. That's going to be a bit troublesome, especially now. You see he unsummons one of my Delvers. So that means that it's going to come back into play as a 1/1, and I may end up doing that to try and eat up the Fanatic, or I can put out the Grotesque if I finally get a Plains. You see I'm still kind of hurting for white. Like I said earlier, you play this deck, you're most of the time going to want to use those Evolving Wilds to fetch out a Plains since you are so low on that mana base. Agony Warp comes down. I'm using it to turn the Delver into a 0/2 and kill off the Kiln Fiend. In response, he does decide to kill off my own Delver, and seeing that I am tapped out on Mana Leak, he was at a point where he would have been kind of captive to that because he did not have the extra mana available to play it. So by deciding to kill off the Kiln Fiend there, I basically sacrificed my Delver. That was a conscious choice that I made. I felt it kind of needed to be done in order to get that going. So you see, I finally hit my planes. Now I have the opportunity. I can play both of these, Delver and the Grotesque, if I so desired, and see which he desired to kill off with the Mog Fanatic. Gonna go out with the Muldrifter first, so I can draw some cards. But it's gonna come down to I'm gonna put those both out. I can put those both out on the same turn, and give him an opportunity to decide which is more troublesome to him. The Muldrifter, the Grotesque can immediately take care of his flip Delver. My Delver is going to eventually flip, especially now that I've drawn Brainstorm. I can basically set it up so that it flips, but it's just something that's going to be hard for him to try and figure out which he wants to do. Draw into a Ravenous Rats, but at this point in the game, you're going to hold on to it. I found myself, wanting a creature, but still holding on to rats, basically because my opponent has no hand. Without, a card in his hand, all it is a 1/1 for 2. So, that's not really, a worthwhile play in most options. Now here you see, as I was talking about that, this is the same thing. It's a 2/1 flyer for 3. I think there's a Pegasus that has that. But, even though it's not hitting that discard, it's still going to force him to make a choice off the Fanatic as to which is more important to him to kill off. So, passing on, he does decide that killing the Grotesque is the more important. I probably would have made the same choice, because right now the threat to deal with is that. By getting rid of that, he is, immediately able to attack me for 3. It's a very aggressive approach. It's probably the same play I would have made, but at the same time, you could very easily leave that back to block and kind of stall out the game, using the Fanatic to kill off my Delver and, leaving his Delver back. Where at this point now, I don't know if he still remembers that I have the Mana Leak in hand, but he has one card. I'm leaving mana open for the Mana Leak, and I can Brainstorm it end of turn. If I don't, you're going to want to do that in response to Delver's trigger going on the stack. And Brainstorm is best friend to Delver. I've learned my lesson. I did at one point use other spells. I prefer some of the other 1 blue costed draw spells. Stuff like Preordain is in my opinion much better than Brainstorm. But I have learned that Brainstorm is definitely the way to go when it comes to Delver. Call it a bias. I don't know how you want to put it. I did at one point. I think there was a video and I talked about not liking Brainstorm in the Delvers, but I have learned my lesson. So if you're one of those people who are out there kind of screaming at your computer like, "What are you doing, you moron?" Well, I've learned my lesson, so we can all move on from there. So I had put the Mana Leak back. He was not playing a spell. It was end of turn. He already knew I had it in hand, so by doing this now, he may consider that I have 2 in hand. I just like to kind of bluff it. I do have a second Delver that he... I think this is the one that he bounced. Either way, I did, if you notice with the Brainstorm, I put a Castigate and the Mana Leak on top, so I know that this Delver is going to flip on the next turn. And now I have the opportunity. I'm going to use Ravenous Rats to try and get rid of his hand. I think that's a better play than Castigate, because it gives me that body. It's not just, discarding a card, it gives me that body. So he's going to unsummon to avoid the discard, the Delver, and this is a good play, I guess. It puts my, resets my Delver to 1/1. Unfortunately, because of the Brainstorm, and this is, again, why I've learned my lesson as to Brainstorm, I have set it up so that I know next turn that this Delver of Secrets is going to flip. So it really doesn't matter that he bounced it. I'm going to end up with 2 flipped Delvers on the next turn anyways. It does unfortunately take away my mana. I cannot use Mana Leak or the Agony Warp on this one. So you see he gets me down to 4 life. Very, very kind of epic ending. It got very close. But unfortunately for him, that Brainstorm did set it up so that these 2 Delvers would flip. And now I have this Castigate in hand. I'm going to get rid of the 1 card that he has, if possible. It is a mountain, so I know that he's got no answers currently. At this point, I'm going to swing with both. Very aggressive. I know he's playing Burn, and some people may be like, you're stupid. He's playing Burn. He's going to swing next turn for 3 and get me to 1. If he has a Burn spell, he can win it past the Mana Leak. But I also have the Agony Warp open, so if that is the case, I can kill it off. if I so desire on next turn. I mean, I've got outs, so I want to be aggressive. There's no point leaving the rats back, because it cannot block the flyer, so of course you're going to attack with it. Even though you're at low life, you have to sometimes be aggressive like this. You see he does get another Delver of Secrets into play and is going to decide to attack, I believe. No, he does pass. But I have, options again, like I said, between the Counterspell and the Agony Warp. It puts me at a real advantage here. Soul Manipulation comes in. I have a couple creature options in the grave, but it's not going to make a difference at this point in time, because I can kill off his his creatures here with the Agony Warp and just turn this around the other way. You see what I'm going to do here? I give the flipped Delver -3/-0, so it's going to be a 0/2, and die 2 blocking my Delver, and use the -0/-3 to kill off his unflipped Delver. So that puts me at a really good advantage. He's now down to 2 life, I'm at 4. I have 2 counterspells in hand, one of which is going to reanimate, and it's going to be pretty much game over. He would need to draw something that would wipe the board, basically, or a fog effect. Maybe, I guess if he was running Burst Lightning, he could have kicked that for 4. He actually, now that I think about it, he is running the Galvanic Blast. He could have killed me off if he top decked into one of those. But, that's just the risk you take in a close game like this. It comes down to luck of the draw at the end sometimes, and here he hit into a land, so worked out in my favor on this one. Definitely a lot of fun, but you can see just the one thing I will point out again, kind of important to be aware of your mana base when running 3 colors without green for ramp. And when you're running this particular deck, you want to be sure to be careful, use Evolving Wilds to get planes when you need them, because it is the lowest count in the deck. So there you have it. That is the Esper control deck. I hope you enjoy it, and definitely check out the other 2 decks that I got for you.